Hello there, welcome to my video, which is going to be the first of a series of videos outlining the framework, which I call SPIDERCIA, which is a solution architecture framework, and which I've written a book about, which I'll provide more detail as we go. So, as you can see here, this is the book. It's a guide to professional solution architecture using a framework which I'm termed SPIDERCIA. And SPIDERCIA is a generic solution architecture framework, so it's not specific to any particular technology. But it provides a broad set of guidance around how to do solution architecture. And the elements around solution architecture, including people, process, requirements, which is who is driving the solution architecture with what business needs. The information system engineering, which is effectively what applications comprises solution. Deployment in infrastructure is how applications are deployed, how to test and examine and test the solution, how to provide a governance framework around requirements fulfilled, the risk management, etc., how to automate the solution using modern practice, such as CI/CD and DevOps, and how to operate the solution in life, all with a mindset of agility using Agile delivery frameworks. So a little bit about me. So I'm an experienced IT professional. I've worked for many years in IT across many different business domains and all the IT lifecycle. Solution architecture is something that is probably the area I'm most passionate about, and I've got a lot of experience in it. I thought I'll outline my experience and my guidance and what I see as best practice to do this discipline. Before we get into the definition of what solution architecture is, probably need to define, well, what problems are we trying to solve? What is solution to what problems? So in the context that I'm using here, it's information systems. So anything that holds data, and any system that's holding data. So this could be a customer-facing system. It could be supporting systems within the enterprise. It could be integrating different systems or hosting systems, and many other combinations of these and many other possibilities, but you get the idea. It's a system which deals with information. So what is solution architecture? Many definitions of this. I'm sure there's many people have got their own definition, but in here I've combined the dictionary definitions of solutions and architecture. So the solution is an act of solving a problem, and an architecture is providing a structure to solving that problem. So you could see here formation or construction from a conscious act. So it's a structured, deliberate approach to solving a solution. So I've combined those into my own working definition, which is developing solutions that address business needs within the context of an enterprise, which is very important. We don't create solutions in isolation, based on lots of best practice, lots of method standard guidelines. Again, we should be doing this within the context of the enterprise, not in isolation, and with the objective that the solution aligns with strategy, fulfills the requirements the business needs, and can be implemented. So a solution that cannot be implemented within given constraints is a pointless solution. So what is SPIDERCIA? So it's a framework that I created based on many years' experience, and it's there to guide a solution architect to meet the many challenges that you will face doing solution architecture. I deliberately use the term professional because that intends a certain element of quality, and quality itself can mean many different things. Probably the main thing I would say is completeness. So it's there to help provide a complete solution design, covering the many different elements that you'll need to address in a solution design. And another key point is it's using the term continuous collaboration is, as a solution architect, you have to collaborate with many, many different stakeholders with many different needs and desires, and you need to do that continuously, not as a one-off. So that's something which is addressed in more detail within the book. So who is SPIDERCIA for? Well, pretty much anyone working in IT. I've got a list here. I won't go through it in detail, but it's anyone delivering an IT solution should be interested in solution architecture, because that guides what the solution should be end to end. So the list here is by no means absolute. So it's just a list of key people that are usually involved in IT solutions, but there's many more. So why did I write this book? The main reason is I've seen lots of problems with solution architecture over the years, and partly to use whatever experience I've got from my many years doing this, and I thought I'd write it down. Some of the reasons people don't understand what solution architecture is often, which is quite worrying, and quite often there isn't a deliberate architecture effort, or even stakeholder management effort. Quite often people gravitate towards what they know, so what technology they know or what specialisms they know, at the expense of an end-to-end complete solution architecture. And similarly, quite often there's an over-focus on technology rather as opposed to areas like business needs, end-to-end business process, etc. Quite often there may be an architecture, but developers or whoever's implementing the architecture don't follow it. Similarly, there's maybe a lack of feedback, as in continuous feedback to the architect around, well, maybe that doesn't work, maybe we can improve on that. Or the architecture is not kept up to date. Or, and I'll mention this as a common theme, isolation. Quite often it's done in isolation without sufficient collaboration. And finally, an ongoing issue with Agile delivery being more, well, probably most of the prevalent means of delivering. There's still maybe a bit of tension between how you produce solution architecture and how you deliver in an Agile fashion. So that's the book is really intended to help address some of these common problems with solution architecture. And also a couple of other inspirations are TOGAF. So I will mention TOGAF quite a lot in this presentation, and it's mentioned a lot in the book. It is the enterprise architecture framework, highly established, the de facto enterprise architecture framework. But it doesn't, in my view, necessarily get down to the level of what you need to produce and carry out solution architecture. And agile collaboration, so again, another common theme. Agility is absolutely prevalent now. It's the main means of developing and delivering solutions. And a lot of solution architecture, in my view, is still stuck in a kind of waterfall mode. So I thought I'd give my view on how we can address some of that. So as I mentioned, the previous slide, so TOGAF is quite a big inspiration for this book, because I've, as well as being a solution architect, I've been an enterprise architect, and it is the de facto framework for enterprise architecture. But it has a different focus, in my view, from solution architecture. It focuses on the enterprise. So it has a bit of an abstract view of solutions. It does provide the framework for delivering solutions, but not necessarily focus on a construction of a solution in much detail. TOGAF provides blueprints and standards, but it doesn't really provide much in the way of guidance on constructing a solution. I do reuse elements of TOGAF, because TOGAF is an excellent framework for enterprise. So and anyone doing solution architecture needs to work with an enterprise framework. But the focus I have is much more detailed in terms of drilling down to individual solutions. So again, I'm only going to be complimentary about TOGAF as an excellent framework, but I don't see it as on its own a solution architecture framework. I'd see it as something that would drive enterprise architecture and complement solution architecture frameworks. And as I say, the book goes into a lot of detail about TOGAF and how I would work with, as a solution architect, how I would work with an enterprise architecture framework like TOGAF. So the constructs that make up the SPIDERCIA framework, it consists of topics. So these are the elements the solution architecture should address. The threads, which link up the topics, so there's a kind of collaboration theme to this again. The context of solution architecture, so how do you work within the bigger picture, within the enterprise architecture. Then there's the role of the solution architecture and skills that solution architecture should have. There's the delivery of the solution architecture. Again, said earlier, no point in having a solution that you can't deliver. So there's a focus here on delivering through an agile method. And then there's the artifacts. So what makes up a solution in terms of actual artifacts, documents, and other items. Just a little overview of what SPIDERCIA is not. So it's not sequential. So it's not a series of phases. It's very much you can address the various points throughout the delivery. So there's nothing mandated in terms of you follow one topic after another. In fact, you certainly should not be doing that. It's not for enterprise architecture. There's better frameworks for that, and TOGAF is probably the likely choice. And it's not a project management guide. So I mention agile frameworks here, but I'm not going to mandate anything, and as outlined in the book, very much the framework depends really on the solution, the context, the wider organizational preferences. So there's lots of bullet points there, but now we get into nice pictures, and this is an overview of the SPIDERCIA topics. So the topics are effectively categorizations of elements that make up the overall solution architecture. So at the top is also the solution architecture itself. So it's a solution architecture framework, so it's going to be at the top, and it links to the enterprise architecture. And we'll cover that in a bit more detail, but that is what's driving the architectural context, the enterprise guidance, standards, etc. Another topic is people, process, and requirements. So this is what's driving the need for this particular solution, who's driving it, with what business process, and what specific requirements and exceptions criteria. The information system design, or also use the term information system engineering, is the applications which make up the solution. And the deployment infrastructure design is the deployment of those applications. Then we get into the testing, examination and testing. So examination is the broader sort of validation and verification of the solution, and testing is sort of detailed different test types. Rapid governance is how we govern the acceptance of the solution. Does it fulfill requirements? What issues, risks, assumptions do we have? And who's involved, and who are the governors who decide that the solution is fit for purpose. CI/CD and DevOps addresses the automation of the solution using continuous integration, continuous deployment, and the quite well established now DevOps framework. And then how do we operate this solution in life? And in the middle here, we've got the requirements backlog and the actual artifacts that are coming out of the solution architecture activities. So that's the topics. Then the thread or link the topics. So throughout the book, there's an outline of the relationships between the topics. I'll give an example. I mean, a key one is obviously the link between solution architecture and the people, process, requirements, which are driving the solution architecture. Each of these is a relationship which makes up the solution. Really important. These aren't created in isolation, which is commonly I've seen deployment designs done with lip service to the applications themselves, or I've seen testing done without even studying the requirements. So everything here is a relationship, and the people involved here should be collaborating using these relationships. The solution threads are just a drill down on specific threads to the solution architecture. So the relationships, but the particularly important relationships for a solution architecture, because that is the focus of this discussion in this book. So again, more details in here, but you can see, more details in the book, but you can see here the threads are all about implementing the solution or getting input into the solution. So again, I focus quite heavily on the relationship between solution architecture and the people, process, requirements really key, but everyone is really key. And again, a bit more detail in the book around how these threads, these relationships should be used in solution architecture practice. Right, so this is a really big, scary diagram is what I call the extended schema. So this can be viewed as a big checklist. So this is it's obviously not going to be completely cover everything in the solution architecture because it's such a wide, varied topic, but it's from a generic point of view, this is what I would want to look at if I was creating a new solution architecture. I'd cover all the different elements. So each of these are subtopics, and each of these have a section in the book to provide out more outline about what I would look to address in the solution architecture. So you can see here a lot around the solution architecture itself, and for example, the solution architecture document and the views it would need to create. So I won't go into any more detail on this because, as I say, each of these actually represents a section within the book. But you can see here, you could use this as a checklist, a cheat sheet, or whatever you want to call it, to guide completeness around the solution architecture activity. A little bit about the worked example. So the worked example is to illustrate how to use the guidance practice within the SPIDERCIA framework within the book to implement professional solution architecture. So it's a fictitious solution for a fictitious company using a company called ECS Health, and it's all around a telehealth and telecare solution. Something I think quite resonates with people because it's showing a really useful solution that people can maybe understand. So won't go into more detail about this, but within the book there's for each section there's a series of, well, how would I implement this example solution using the preceding guidance within that given section. So that's a bit of an overview of SPIDERCIA, the purpose, the aims, how it's made up. So next section in the book is the solution architecture context. So this is really outlining what a solution architecture is for and the context it operates in. And I quite like to use examples like this to show, well, quite often in IT in general, we don't really follow best practice, and we kind of we're not as mature as many other industries. And a good example is this little cartoon where it shows, well, if you're going to build something, build even a city, and if you were given a series of raw materials, just go and build it. Well, you wouldn't do that. You would have architecture, the planners, um, to agree the structure of what you're implementing first. Quite far too often in IT, we don't kind of follow those rules. So the idea of the solution architecture would be, well, yeah, you can give me raw materials, that's great, but we still need to plan it out. We still need to plan the solution. So I make quite a big thing about not working in isolation and working within the context of the enterprise, and this just shows that enterprises they have many elements to them. So they have preferred technology. They have people operate business processes. They work within most enterprises have regulations they have to work to. So there's different elements of enterprises that and their given goal is to produce products and services that customers will buy. And within that context, solution architect has its place, and its place is working within a framework which is devised by enterprise architecture. So that provides the guidance, the standards, policies, and then solution architecture provides a solution for a particular problem. And the designs will drill down and provide the detailed implementation level plan, focusing on a particular aspect of the solution architecture. So you can see here kind of increasing level of detail. It's all about planning. It's all about structure and planning, but you're getting an increasing level of detail down to the right. I can code from this. I can implement. I can write detailed configuration from this. So you can see here it's going from the broad to the specific and from the high to low level focus. So a bit about the benefits of solution architecture. Many benefits. Probably, yeah. The first one is building the wrong thing. I've seen many solutions that even if they work, what does work even mean? They haven't fulfilled the business needs. And key part of solution architecture is making sure it, and not as a one-off, but continuously ensuring we are addressing the business needs. And that comes with constant collaboration with the stakeholders. Examining different options. So there will almost always be different options that you can implement with different costs, different constraints, different timelines, different risks. And it's important to outline those options and justify the fundamental decisions which make up the architecture. And similar to that, solution architecture should address the costs, standards, constraints that you're working within. You're never working with no cost constraints or no other constraints. You've always got constant constraints you've got to work within. And it must align to enterprise capabilities. Again, this theme about working close with enterprise architecture and translating business needs into technical solutions. So there's no point having technical solutions without business needs. But business is going to drive it. Again, going back to one of the earlier slides, but the whole point of enterprise is to produce products and services that customers consume, so we can function as a business. And one of the goals of the solution architecture is to translate what I want as a business into solving a particular problem for the business. It's also useful for it to help coordinate change. So change is a constant theme of any IT framework now. Change is constant is the mantra often used, and a strong solution architecture can help guide that change because you know what your solution architecture is, and and usually if it's a well-constructed solution architecture, to have some sort of roadmap for future as well. So you've got a basis on which to base change. And it defines how you'd extend the solution architecture again. Just going back to what we said before about roadmap. So you should have a clear course for where the solution is going. And it documents the vision. So quite often I've seen many good solution architects, many very bright people, but their vision's in their head. So if it's not documented, it's very difficult to share. Right. So a bit about boundaries. So previous slide I talked about what a solution is, that it is, what solution architecture is, and within the enterprise there'll be many different solution architectures for many different products, services, systems, platforms, however we want to segment it. So it's important that whatever solution architecture you're doing, it has boundaries. And this isn't to be a job's worth or to say, right, this is I'm only doing this, nothing more. It's really important because it knows the scope of your solution, and also equally importantly how your solution operates and interacts with other solutions. And it's this mix of solutions working together which makes up the overall enterprise. So here's just an example of a solution boundary diagram. So you're seeing here within the sales system, this is the scope of what it does. So it's there to take orders for sales. It's not a billing system. It's not a CRM system. It's not a portal. It works with those, so it interacts with those. Each of these would have its own solution architecture. So this scoping is really, really important. So everyone is clear, including all the stakeholders and all the other solution architects you may work with are clear on the scope of your solution. A little bit about the spectrum of architecture and design. So I kind of alluded to it earlier. There's an increasing level of detail. I think this quite nicely shows that we go from kind of abstract within the enterprise architecture. So the enterprise architecture has got the big picture view. The big picture view can be quite abstract because of the scope it's got to cover. And as you go along the spectrum, you're getting into the tangible, as in this is something I can implement from, or the furthest edge is what's implemented. So enterprise architecture has the big picture, but a sort of high abstract level. Design is the level you can actually implement from. In between is solution architecture. It kind of bridges the two. Bridges the enterprise architecture, the big picture, or the biggest picture of the enterprise, and the level you can actually implement from. So it's providing that kind of bridge in a structured way. Another slightly different look at it is we've got. I'll start with the old way of doing it. So the old way would be we would have a strategy, we would have enterprise principles, standards, governance, etc. But you can see here it's all top down. So it's all very much, this is our strategy. From an enterprise perspective, this is how we're going to implement the strategy. And then there you go, Mr. Solution Architect. You take this forward into a solution. Big flaw in this obviously is the lack of feedback and the lack of collaboration. So a more modern way of doing this would be, yes, there's strategy. Yes, we still need enterprise architecture, and absolutely we need solution architecture, but there's feedback here. So collaboration between the business strategy, enterprise architect, the solution architect, absolutely key, because the people producing the solution architectures, they can see the issues, the constraints, and the difficulties in implementing this architecture. They feed it back constantly. A constant refining of this is absolutely key. And this links the topics of that discussed in the SPIDERCIA framework to the enterprise. So I'll probably say it many times in these slides, we don't do solution architecture in isolation. We have to do it. If it's going to be successful, we have to do it in the enterprise, in the context of the enterprise. So you can see here, so this is expanding out this, what was in the SPIDERCIA topic diagram into the enterprise framework. So this is where TOGAF would come in, and TOGAF provides the application data architectures, infrastructure architecture, the business architectures, and the associated enterprise guidance standard policies. So the solution architecture would work with these, would feed back into them as well. It's not one way, and would use these to implement a solution which fits within the enterprise context, which aligns with enterprise strategy. So it's really, really key. And what I do in the book, I just give a bit of a summary of TOGAF. Some people listening to this might know TOGAF well, possibly better than I do. I've used it many years, but I'm not going to say I'm a leading expert, but this just gives a bit of an overview of TOGAF and let's use TOGAF, the well-known ADM process, the architecture development method. And taking the ADM forward, so this is, what I've done here is just outlined where solution architecture would fit in. So the first parts are creating the enterprise architectures, the business, information systems, technology, etc. This part, so the opportunities, solutions, migration planning, and implementation governance, this is where solution architecture comes into play. You're actually implementing one or more solutions that the enterprise architecture has identified that's required for the business. And at this point, you're modifying the solutions you've implemented. But it's here where the link between solution architecture and enterprise architecture, more than anything, comes into play. So this is where you would align your solution architecture activities within the context of TOGAF. I've alluded to some of this already when I talk about enterprise context. But drilling down a little bit, so enterprise repository is really key. Within enterprise policy repository, you need to outline your business goals, your architecture, and your enterprise architectures, different building blocks, your different standards, etc. So I go into quite a bit more detail in the book around this, but this is all about the context that solution architecture is working within, and would feed back into as well. Again, I can't stress that enough. It's not a top-down, not one way. It's providing guidance to solution architectures who feed back. So that's a brief overview of SPIDERCIA as a framework, and an overview of solution architecture and the context, specifically the enterprise context, which solution architecture works within. Hopefully that's been useful. As I say, this is a summary of what's in the book, and I'll just link to the book, which you can look at to provide much more detail. So this is a link to the book, and any comments, questions are available on this address and from LinkedIn as well. And I look forward to discussing and having chats with anyone. Absolutely delighted to be contacted.